Good afternoon. I'm Mary Ruth Snyder, coming to you from the Tidemark Theatre. I'm the Executive Director for the Campbell River and District Chamber of Commerce. And our guest today is Mr. Brian Shaw. Brian is the manager for Mackie Research Capital here in Campbell River and the chair of the Campbellton Neighborhood Association. Before we get into all of the great things that are happening in Campbellton, we are going to dissect finances. The financial markets of the world. Brian, how many years have you worked in the financial field?
Good question, Mary. I have been in the business since 1983 and have pretty much kept doing that. I started here in Campbell River in 1992. Okay. So I've followed all of the markets for quite a few years and have a pretty good grip on what's going on. However, from day to day, one can never be sure. Today was a pretty interesting day, of course, with the inauguration down stateside, and that's had its whale of an effect on the stock markets today, too. But this is a culmination of what the markets have been waiting for the last 3 months, we'll call it. Ever since the crash of the market in March of 2020, the markets haven't even taken a breath. They've wandered back up since that time. And that's a combination of the stock markets ignoring the political instability around the world, and just focused on how well companies are doing.
Right. So before we get into too much about what's happening today, let's talk about what the markets were like pre-COVID. So looking back at last January, last February, by then we knew that something was happening in China and it was on the verge of spreading to Italy. Was it affecting the markets then, or did it begin to affect the markets even before that in a year ago, December or November, when the news was coming out of China about what was happening in Wuhan?
Didn't affect it at all.
Really?
Not at all. The markets have been on a sound little march, actually, ever since, well, going back a few years, back 7 or 8 years, actually. The markets have done well, primarily in North America, based on the federal funds rate, controlling interest rates, keeping interest rates relatively low.
Right.
So this all, the stock markets revolve around interest rates, really. And because interest rates have been buried over the last 10 years, at least, if not more, ever since 2008, honestly, the markets have been going up and down, but all based on whether there are interest rate surprises coming along.
Okay.
The Fed funds in the United States really control what happens here in Canada for all intents and purposes. Okay. Canadian markets haven't done all that well because the oil markets, the mining markets for several years have been just awful. Okay.
And there hasn't been any other sectors that have come forward to replace those?
Not really.
Okay.
The banking industry has always been a standard. In Canada, we don't have that much in the way of industry.
Okay.
Excuse me. We do have the high-tech industry has done very well, and you can see all kinds of ups and downs in there, but generally it's kept a fairly good direction. Interest rates in Canada have been slave to the United States. We can't afford to have our Canadian dollar too expensive, because then we can't export our goods around the world, and that's what we are. We're an exporting country.
Right.
We need a high gross domestic product, and we need a high export participation. If we don't have that, we're in real trouble.
Okay.
So that's why it is where it is, why we always seem to be lower than the American dollar. American interest rates are relatively low, are very low, historically low, and they're going to remain that way too.
What was it last March that caused them to, not the interest rates, but the stock market to plummet. You mentioned that.
That was
it
100% COVID-19.
Okay, because it hit North America.
It hit North America, and when everybody got shut down,
So the 13th, 14th of March.
it just, then fear hit the market.
Okay.
Markets run by fear or greed. And in this case, it was all fear. It drove things down incredibly.
How long did that last? Was it a week or 2 weeks?
Oh, geez,
Three?
maybe
4?
3 weeks
Okay.
altogether.
Before it started to gradually.
It stabilized and then
yeah.
started to recover. Wasn't that fast, but it has been steady ever since there. You just simple, it's easy to take a look at all the charts. What's also interesting is that the price of oil collapsed at that time,
Right.
which just decimated the Canadian and US oil industries as well. If you recall, OPEC and Russia had a big oil fight
Yes.
just in late 2020. And this, and on the heels of that came COVID-19, so it was, what are we going to do now?
Right.
And the price of oil dropped back into the high 20s. We're seeing it over 50 now, so it's effectively doubled. But it's been a real catalyst to getting oil companies in Canada, oil and gas companies, to rebound.
Is it, do you think that the general public have an understanding, like getting back to the oil prices in particular, that that is set by a young prince in Saudi Arabia that decided to, for no better term, but to throw a hissy fit, and he actually dumped all sorts of oil onto the market to drive the price down. And that it was one individual that caused that catastrophic collapse. Do you think that that is understood widely?
Oh yeah, I don't know about our general population, but anybody that does watch the news can see that, yes, Saudi Arabia initiated it, but Russia perpetuated it, and really they dumped. So between the two of them, we saw incredible drops in the market. And then on the heels of all of that, just at the worst possible time, came COVID-19. And then it was assumed at the time by the markets, looking out, always looking out, that oil prices would continue to remain very low. And they have. They effectively, well, shoot, we remember the highest price of oil back a few years was $150 odd a barrel. We're now looking at just over 50. And we think we're doing good. A few other things have occurred in the markets in the oil industry, but we won't harbor on that. But we're seeing oil prices get moving again as the economies get moving again after the recovery from COVID-19. It's not the same world, to be sure, but industry is really trying to ignore the shock of COVID-19 right now.
Okay. How big of an effect do you think that the swearing in of the 46th President of the United States is going to have, knowing that he is a stable, decent human being?
I don't think too much of an impact at all. President Trump over the last 4 years has run the country like a business and looking for profits in the market. And true, the stock market in the United States is at an all-time high right now. The reason for it is lower taxes in the States, very low interest rates where bonds are not going to outperform an average stock over the next few years. And this is what fund companies look at. Which is the better alternative? Do you go bonds or do you go stock? Bonds are the more stable of the two, but and that's why we go there. But if the interest rates are so low, you're not going to get a rate of return, then you're automatically going to push money into the equity side of things. And that occurs in Canada, all over the world. It's the same story.
Do you think the introduction and the creation of the vaccines into countries globally will have an effect on the markets, or has it already had an effect?
The markets are always looking at least 6 months out. So yes, the market is energized by the thought that we're going to have vaccines. It was 6 months ago that most of the drug companies, Moderna, AstraZeneca, had their real push in value.
Right,
because it was
Pfizer.
expected
Yeah.
that they would come up with something.
Right.
And then that they did, and now that they have, the stocks haven't done anything. So it's anticipation. What do we say? Buy the rumor, sell the fact. And
Right.
that's where we're going with all of this right now.
Okay.
Canada is doing better. Canada's having a bang up of a year because
Okay.
oil prices have recovered.
Right.
Mining industries are having a resurgence right now because gold as an alternative currency is just flying right now. Cryptocurrencies are becoming having a big impact in the markets right now. All of this is good for Canadians, where we get more employment, we get more money in the households, more taxes paid, so the Canada's a richer country because of it.
So in spite of the global pandemic impacting the hospitality industry and the tourism industry, which has been decimated from coast to coast to coast, Canada is still managing all right financially because of all of those other sectors that have been essentially unaffected by the pandemic impact.
Correct. In a word, yes. And certainly we do have our challenges in the tourism industry, the transport industry, but transport companies transporting goods have reoriented the focus of our economy. Right now, if you look at Amazon, for instance, they're creating a whole new world. Our delivering is becoming a whole new world. But you got to look at all the ancillary industries around it. You look at the wood industry is doing extremely well. We've got record high prices of wood right now. And we have record high prices in cardboard and other goods around it because it's all associated.
Okay. Where can you, like when you're talking to your peers in the financial industry and you are sort of looking into the future, where do you see things in 2 months, 3 months? As long as things are, as long as the government stays stable and the vaccines continue to roll out, what do you anticipate in the next couple of months?
Good question. The markets love stability, and the markets should do very well over the next couple of months, even up to years. The price of commodities is very high right now. We're looking at gold moving to new highs as an alternative currency to the US dollar, or the euro, or the Canadian dollar for that matter, the Chinese yuan. It's all, it's doing quite well against all of those as a hedge industry. Okay. People are still concerned, of course, about the recession around COVID-19 and because it's certainly having a big effect. How many of you want to get on an airplane right now? It's really tough. So that industry needs help. But at the same time, the stocks are off their bottom because when they're looking out 6 months to a year. And that's the reason why.
So I'd like to ask one more question because I think we're coming close to the end of our first segment. But this is based on an article that I saw in the last couple of days. I believe it was in the Financial Post about how Canadians are increasingly concerned about the fact that their pension dollars continue to be spent and invested in China and China products. Do you have any insight into why the pension fund managers are investing in the Far East?
The pension fund managers are not just investing in the Far East. They've always invested in the Far East. Okay. Because investing in China means that your goods are coming out cheaper. Those goods are getting more expensive as their economy builds. Okay. And thus we look for new markets all the time. But China right now is growing at 7% GDP. They're very good still, but compared to where they were, they're in a recession. They used to have 9, 10, 11, 12% annual GDP or increases. And what we're looking at is something substantially reduced. So China is, although outwardly the numbers look like they're good, they're not. That's why in the last 4 years, the U.S. has been trying to really push through trade wars so that it would become more expensive to get stuff from China than it is in Canada. We should see a relaxing of that. Hopefully for Canada, the steel industry is huge, the mining industry is huge, and with tariffs being tossed on us, it's really tough for Canadian companies to get ahead.
Now, do you think that the tariff issue will start to be alleviated with the new administration that's come into the United States?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It'll come down in pieces, but our North American free trade agreement should get back on its wheels again. And we're looking at steel prices, forestry. Everything that Canada produces is affected. Look at milk, for instance. That's crazy, but it is, and that will normalize. And we'll get back to normal on that. It won't affect our economy so much. It'll affect the businesses involved in that. More importantly is how is the world going to rebound from the changes that COVID-19 brought about.
Right. Okay. You are watching Insights in Business. We are coming to you from the Tidemark Theatre in the city of Campbell River. I'm Mary Ruth Snyder. I'm the Executive Director for the Campbell River and District Chamber of Commerce, and Mr. Brian Shaw is the manager of Mackie Research Capital here in Campbell River. We are going to take a short break, but we will be right back with more information about the financial side and the Campbellton Neighborhood Association.
This is my habitat house. My parents helped build it. Now we don't get wet when it rains. I don't get too hot or too cold inside. And I don't have to worry when the winds blow. This is my house.
This is my house. This is my house. My house. My house.
I can play with my sister. I can play with my brother. I can play with my mother, my father, my family.
My family. My family. This is my house. This is my house.
I can study. I can be safe with my family. This is my house.
This is my house.
My house.
My house.
This is my house.
Find out how you can help more families like mine have a safe, decent place to call home.
Welcome back. We are coming to you from the Tidemark Theatre. We are streaming live to Facebook today. First time ever we've done it live. I'm Mary Ruth Snyder, the Executive Director of the Campbell River and District Chamber of Commerce. My guest today, Mr. Brian Shaw. Many of you might recognize him from his years of working with the Rotary Club here in town and the Campbellton Neighborhood Association, and of course, Mackie Research Capital.
Oh, what about the pipe band?
And the pipe band, yes, he is an excellent piper. How many years have you been playing the bagpipes?
Since I was 11 years old.
Oh, wow.
And you don't want to really know how old I am.
No. So just very quickly back to the financial markets before we jump into the Campbellton Neighborhood Association. So with your peers, when you're looking out 2 months, 6 months, what are you hoping to see?
I'm hoping to see a continuation of what we're currently getting.
Okay.
Currently, we're in a bubble, what we call a bubble, because the markets have done so well since COVID started. Sure, they depressed by 25% in a few days, but it's for the most part, the market has recovered all of that and gone further. We're past the new high, so I would hope to see this bubble continuing. I expect it to start going sideways, but good industries will continue to be good industries. We're just hoping that more industries catch up.
Now, is the housing market going to affect it one way or another, or does it really have that big of an effect?
The housing market is where it's a huge foundation, let's put it that way.
Okay.
Think about how our economies revolve. Industries supply housing. Housing, construction, sale of houses, all of these are monthly indicators of how our economy is going.
Okay.
And that's the bottom line. Yes.
Right. Okay. So that is a great summary overall from the first segment and that of where the markets are, what's affecting them, and what we should look for moving forward. Let's pray for stability around the world for all of that to continue.
Agreed.
All right. Now, Campbellton Neighborhood Association. Let's look at the history. So if you could share with us sort of how many years you've been involved and sort of how it's evolved over the time that you've been at the helm.
I haven't been involved that long. But in 2011, Councillor Ron Kerr and myself, along with Jim DeHart, another businessman in Campbellton, looked at Campbellton and said, this is not as good as it could be. It looks like the forgotten part of Campbell River.
Right.
And truly, I use the phrase, it looks like you're going back to the 1940s when you look at this place. There's no trees, there's no friendliness to it, there's wires everywhere, stark buildings, weeds, garbage everywhere, needless to say, and the social issues that arose with it. So.
Right.
Me having moved into the area, bought into the area, thought for business, I thought, well, we should be looking at doing something here in order to improve our fare. Housing prices were quite low in the area, and for good reason, because there was a lot of bad things happening there. So we started.
What year was that?
2010, 11.
Okay, great. So a decade ago.
Absolutely. Well,
so over the last decade, snapshot.
Campbell River, the city of Campbell River, primarily council, has been very good at responding to the development of Campbellton.
Okay.
We have been more or less a lobby group for city council, to city council, although we're very closely tied. I know all of the councillors. I think I have a very good relationship with all of them. Mm-hmm. And I don't try to push. We're all on the same team. The group has been working on various improvements. At first, we started with, it was a complaint-driven organization. Right. Simply because there are a lot of things wrong, and how do you fix these? So at the very start, what we did, and through the City of Council, Campbell River, with their planning department, was do an inventory of what Campbellton looked like. Okay. It's safety and security, it's the benefits of being there, the troubles in the various areas, and we came up with a whole list of ideas of what we could. At about that time, too, we got in cahoots with Vancouver Island University, okay. Who and their department, Dr. Pam Shaw in urban geography, right. Immediately jumped on the idea with us to come up with what they call a placemaking strategy. Okay. Placemaking. How do you make Campbellton a place, a village you want to be proud of? Right. And they came up with over a year and a half, their senior classes came up with a series of proposals. I would say at least 80 of them. Oh, really? And you can find it on our website too. Okay. It still is there, and we've only worked at a number of these, but it came with everything from how streets should look, how we should get in touch with the river, how to get in touch with the ecology, with safety, and like I said, security, how to best bring the people to the area so that more people will become interested in living there too. Right. So we started cleaning up. We did our beautification projects. Right. That's the reason we have the flowers out there. Carol Couture's a real big push over the last several years. Have been wonderful. But that's not all we did. We tried to influence City Hall on different things for safety, like the that wasn't supposed to happen. I apologize. I thought I had that on silent, but I didn't. Right. But so we had a whole bunch of fronts we could push up out right. against.
I think Campbellton is such an interesting place. I had the opportunity to go with one of your peers from the Campbellton Neighborhood Association, Laurel Cronk, mm-hmm. who took me on a tour of what will become the river route for hiking and biking. It's extraordinary. I had no idea there was so much easily accessible nature literally steps away from the main road. That is just spectacular.
It truly is. And that's on the heels of a bunch of years
Right.
of just trying to get it on the ground.
Right.
We really started focusing on the river about 5 years ago, saying that everybody, look, we've got out here, we have the Snowden trails, we have the pathways all through this area. We, this year, Laurel really focused on 7 trails that you could go to throughout Campbellton, and it's just a fun place to be. We're the north part of town, that's a fact, but we're connected to the West Island, we're connected to the North Island, we're connected to all types of greenery and entertainment that people can do safely, especially even now in COVID times.
And the Greenways, the new Greenways loop actually ends right at one edge of Campbellton, and then the river loop, which isn't got signage yet, but it will have.
This year, yes.
It picks it up right there and carries on. I just, so flower boxes, cleanup, more engagement from businesses, engagement from Campbellton residents, and now you've got some benches and viewpoints right at the river that people can access.
Exactly. We want to make sure that people living in the community enjoy it.
Can get to the river and sit there and watch it go by.
Wonderful opportunity. Those locations, we're doing one on 19th right now.
Okay.
The corner
there's
of
one of them right there.
Oh, that's right. That's the Spruce Street entrance feature, the river right in front of it, with just a huge pile of blackberry. Beforehand, and then we, as you'll see, the 19th and Tidemark viewpoint now. We're trying to get that set up. We love the 20th Avenue has a wonderful viewpoint as well. A few years ago, we looked at working the Maple Street corner, wanted to fit that in to make it look something like that, but there was, because it crosses onto the Mert Thompson Trail, and then on to Bandlands. Things haven't gone so quickly there, but we're always hoping. But the idea is for people in the area to use what's available to you. We also have Greenways Land Trust in the areas managing it. This sometimes seems at cross purposes, but we want people to use it, and we want people to respect nature. This is right in the backyard of everybody in Campbellton. And that's what makes it a nice place to live at. And as a function of that, home values in Campbellton are going up.
Yes.
And
now,
it's a place to come to.
It is the place to come to. And as you come down the highway into Campbellton, there is a new entrance feature that is going up. There's a piece of it right there.
There you go. Yeah, that's the fuselage.
So tell us about this airplane that's going to welcome people to Campbellton at that corner of the highway where you come in.
A quick history. We started this project in 2015.
All right.
We approached Sealand Aviation. And Bill Alder agreed that he would find an airplane to have us put it together.
All right.
And
now, what kind of airplane is going up?
This is a Beaver Aircraft. We're going to put a Beaver Aircraft on a pedestal in the park that you'll find between Tidemark and Willow Street on the corner of 14th. And there's a little, it's where the freeway divides out into those two streets, and there's a little park right in there. We've already done the foundation for it, massive foundation.
It's huge.
It's a long time in coming because, but the city administration has been very helpful. All the pieces are coming together. The airplane has it's all completely painted except for the fuselage right now.
Okay.
I'm a busy guy.
You're in demand. Now, very quickly, because we have reached the end of the show, when will the airplane be assembled and put in its place on its pedestal?
Cross your fingers, but we're hoping in the next 3 months.
Okay, great. And will there be a big ceremony announcing that?
It all depends.
to invite the public?
We haven't really focused on that just yet.
Okay.
One final thing.
AGM.
The AGM is coming up next Wednesday, a week today.
Yep, January
at,
27th.
6 p.m. You can connect with me. It's on our website, on our Facebook page as well, and has been advertised through various outlets that you can find online, especially the Chamber of Commerce too, for the matter. And thank you.
Well, Brian, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing with us your insight to the financial markets and all things Campbellton, and congratulations on all of the amazing projects.
Thank you. And thank you, Campbell River.
You've been watching Insights in Business coming to you from the Tidemark Theatre. We've been live streaming on Facebook. There will be a recording of this available later this week. I'm Mary Ruth Snyder for the Campbell River and District Chamber of Commerce. Have a lovely day. We'll see you again.